You Orns. Greetings, Watford fans, and I hope you're well. It was a game to forget today at the Amex as Brighton defeated Watford 2-0. And really, this game was lost in the first half, and the manager here has to take this one on the chin and hold up his hand. The tactics were wrong in this one, and you could see it from the off as far as the game was concerned. Brighton coming out with energy and passion and purpose. Watford looking like they were still playing in the championship. And that's really the issue, and it's down to Cisco here. Cisco really is the one that has to take this one on the chin. And it was an education for him today. He got a Premier League education. And it happens. This is what the Premier League is. It's very unforgiving. And I think Cisco got his lesson today. And the team just did not have the tempo and the energy level to deal with Brighton in that first half. It was very clear from the start. Watford were playing a different tempo altogether from Brighton, who, you know, Brighton, came out from the off, punished Watford, um, were faster than Watford to every ball. Really did look a team that belonged in the Premier League. Watford looked like they were, as I said, in the Championship. And after that first goal went in after 10 minutes with Sean Duffy scoring in that 10th minute, Shane Duffy, excuse me, scoring in that 10th minute for Brighton. And it was a goal that you really couldn't have done too much about. Messina was there. He just got ahead of Messina, and that's a goal that happens. No issue there. You just tip your hat. It was a really good header and 1-0. Okay. Now, after that goal, the mission is to react, and how you compose yourself and react to that goal on the road especially is a key. And as a manager, you give them 10 15 minutes to respond to that. And if there isn't a response to that, you have to start looking at some tactical tweaks in game to the extent that you can do it, or at least what you try to do is ride out the game to halftime. But in this particular instance, this was not a case of riding out anything till halftime. This was a case of these players just were not at the same tempo. And for me, that's about your formation. That's about not getting support down the channels. And what you need to do with that is tweak your defense and your back line. And Cisco did not do that in the first half. What I think he should have done is at the 25-minute mark or so, 15 minutes after that 10th minute goal, you make a tactical change in your formation and you make it a flat back three. And I think that's what you do. And I think what you do then is make that midfield shape a little bit different. You try to stop these threats down the channels. And then you have a back three that has an identity, has an idea what it's doing. And at that point, you try to neutralize the Brighton attack down the channels with a block of five in that midfield, and then have a focal point of two up front. That's what I think they should have done. Make it a 3-5-2 at the 25th minute mark of that first half. Had they done that, we may have seen something different. I'm not saying that Watford would have won the game. I'm not saying anything about that. I'm not saying at all that the result would have changed. But what you would have seen is a team competing in that first half. And the first half is where they lost this game. Brighton continued to press, and because Watford did not have any formation change and the players were still on the Brighton pier and not at the Amex, you saw a very sloppy giveaway, a very sloppy second goal. The first goal I can live with, but that second goal was not good. That was sloppy. Troost-Ekong, poor pass to Cleverly. He had too much time on the ball, did Troost-Ekong. And as a result, he gives the ball away. Mopé comes in, sticks it in the back of the net. It's a really poor goal to give up right before halftime. On top of that, 41st minute of the game, and you're down 2-0 in the blink of an eye. And that to me is not only Troost-Ekong being so slow on the ball and having too much time, that's naivete from the manager too. That is a naive manager at that point. And You saw the result there, 2-0. And for me, you see what was going on that first half. It was too slow, too languid, not enough speed, not enough movement, everyone looking at each other. No one knew what their role was. And you can't play like you're still in the championship in the Premier League. You can't, because if you play like you're still in the championship in the Premier League game, you're going to be in the championship at the end of that season. You can't play like that. And that's the lesson today. And I think that what you really take out of this game is that this is a wake up call and a lesson to be learned. The manager got taught a lesson today. And it's that simple. He got taught a Premier League lesson. And that's end of story. There's really not much else to say about the game, because that second goal really was what epitomized the problems on the pitch with the formation. And if that formation change had been made around the 25-minute mark, you give him 15 minutes to try to react to that first goal going in. And if that does not change, if you don't see any reaction at all, you see the same languid championship type tempo in a Premier League game, you have got to change the formation. You've got to tactically tweak that formation. You've got to make that a flat back three. Messina had no idea. He was looking for help. He didn't get enough of it from Sema coming back. And you can't be in a situation in the Premier League when you're constantly looking for help. That is down to the manager, who needs to change the formation. He didn't do it. He got that wrong. So this was a Premier League education today for Xisco. This was really his welcome to the Premier League match. And if you want to take any silver lining out of this game at all, it is, number one, that it came early, that this lesson got taught out to Xisco and the team early, and against Brighton and not City. Because had this been City, it would have been a 6-0 game, like it usually is. But the thing is that in the second half, Brighton sat off and they sat back on the 2-0 lead. That's what that was. That's the only reason why this game did not get further out of hand than it could have done, is because Brighton sat back. Brighton sat back in this game in the second half, and Watford came on, played a lot better. The halftime substitution of Cucho coming into the game was obviously something that was effective. But again, there was really no identity in the back, although they did essentially go to a flat back three, which is what they did after Cucho came on. And I think Cathcart was subbed off, and it was more of a flat back three there. But the problem is that Xisco, I think, got a little bit too desperate with trying to make too many changes at the front of the pitch and not solidifying enough at the back or in the middle of the pitch. And what you had is a galaxy full of forwards trying to force things to happen rather than imposing themselves on the game like Cucho did, coming in and trying to orchestrate something. He had too much up front and too much of a clogged front line. And as a result, despite there being a couple of chances, it was really scrappy. And that's what happens when you try to force a game to happen in that second half, like Xisco did really after the 65th minute of the game or so. 70 minutes coming into it is when I think you've got a lot of forced changes, Xisco desperately trying to make something happen. And that's not how the Premier League works. You have got to, as a manager, adjust to the game as you see it happening. And I think he waited way too long to make those changes into a back three and to create something on the pitch. And what he should have done, as I said, is at the 25th minute mark, make something happen. You see your players are still flat. They're still playing in a tempo that's championship tempo, while Brighton are still in Premier League tempo mode. You've given them 15 minutes to react. It's not worked. You've got to change that back three, because Brighton were having all the joy down that right side. And you saw what happened with Troost Akong. Very, very lackadaisical, and that really underscores the mission now in these next 10 or 11 days, the transfer window that are left, is that Gino and company have to get some defenders in. And I think they will. They'll get defenders in, and they will absolutely make that happen. here, because the defensive line got really exposed today and the tactics got really exposed today, and Cisco got taught a Premier League lesson. And that's really what you pulled this game down to. I wouldn't panic very much at all about this game. It's the second game of the season. Um, I think the thing that will nag at a lot of us as Watford fans is that the changes weren't made quickly enough, and it wasn't seen by Cisco or his team. They did not see this, and I don't know how you couldn't see that these players were playing at championship tempo. You could clearly see the back line, especially down that right side, Messina's left and Brighton's right side. There was no movement at all, and everyone was looking around at each other, and that is a disorganized formation, and players not knowing what their roles were. So I don't know what happened in training, and I don't know if Cisco trained for the 3-5-2 and the 4-3-3, but clearly it did not work on the pitch in those first 20 minutes or for the entire first half. And I think that the silver lining is that A, it happened in game number 2 of the season, B, it happened as Brighton as your opponent and not as City or Liverpool as your opponent, because that could have been really bad really quickly had it been Liverpool or Manchester City as your opponent there. And 3, they're going to look at film and they're going to have an education on this. Now, look, one game does not a season make. I said that last week after Watford's win over Aston Villa, and I'm going to say it every week, no matter what the result is. And I've said this before too. We are not going to know about Watford until we really, A, look at the transfer window closing and see what we've got, and B, when we get to game number 10 really of the season, then we can really properly evaluate what Watford are as a team, what their identity is on the pitch, and what the players are looking like in these Premier League games. We're going to need to get to game number 9 and 10 before we can really give, I think, a really informed and proper evaluation. So right now, this one was down to the manager. And I think the manager today has to hold his hand up and say, look, I'm sorry. I just did not have this tactically right. I waited too long to change the formation. I waited till the second half to do it. And I hold up my hand and say, I got an education today and it's on me. And so I think Cisco will do that. I hope he does that. And the team has to be stood up and counted today as well. The performances weren't good enough. I think the only real bright spots on the pitch, Peter Atebo, I think still, again, manfully did a very good job of what he could do on the field. And Cucho obviously looked good. Josh King was a bright spark as well on the pitch. I thought he brought some energy and life in that game.